Hello everyone, this is Mr. Van Dzura. In this video we'll be talking about counting beats and notes and how we can use the beats to fill a measure of 4/4 time. Before we dive into those notes, we're going to first talk about our music staff. This is what our music staff looks like. You'll see a mix of clefs. Here we have the treble clef on top and the bass clef on the bottom, and those clefs tell us which pitch we're using, so when we place our notes on the staff it'll tell us what they sound like. But it also shows us our measures. The measures are the little boxes. Here you can see there are 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. The same thing for this bottom staff. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 measures in this staff. Inside the measures is where we'll put our different notes. And when we are in 4/4 time, 4 is the magic number. 4/4 is our most common time. And what it tells us is that there are 4 beats per measure. That's what that top number means. The bottom number means what kind of note equals 1 beat, but we'll talk about that later. For this week, all you need to remember is that in 4/4 time, there are 4 beats in the measure. So every time we want to fill the measure, we need to make sure we're hitting 4 beats. And you can see that's happening here, because this whole note will go for 1, 2, 3, 4 beats. Well, let's review that. How do we know which notes get how many beats? To do that, we can actually use pizza as an example for us. So here you'll see a whole pepperoni pizza. And this whole pepperoni pizza is going to be equal to 4. Every other slice of pizza that we'll have will go back to this idea of having the whole pizza equal 4. So if I put a whole pizza into one measure, because it needs to equal 4 beats, and because we said my whole pizza equals 4, that checks out. Because once we put 4 beats in, our measure is complete. So with that in mind, if we were to change it from a whole pizza to half of a pizza, how many beats would half of that pizza be equal to? So in other words, how much is this slice equal to? If the whole thing is equal to 4, but now we're only using half, it's going to be equal to 2. So half of my pizza is equal to 2 beats. So if I have 2 halves of pizza, I have 1 half pizza that's equal to 2, another half pizza that's equal to 2, and that will bring me to 4, which completes my measure. Remember, every time once we hit 4 beats, our measure is complete. Now is where we start to get a little trickier. So we had a whole pizza, and then we split that in half to get 2 beats. Now we're going to split it in half again. So 4 split in half got us to 2, and now 2 split in half is going to bring us to 1 beat. So if we have a quarter slice, it'll equal 1, because we have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 brings us to 4, or our whole pizza. So our quarter slice gets 1 beat. So now if I put 4 of my quarter slices into my measure, I will have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which brings me to 4, which then completes my measure. And now we can think of our pizza in terms of our music notes. So first we have our whole pizza. We said the whole was equal to 4. Well, our whole note is also equal to 4. And our whole note is easy to remember because it kind of looks like a whole pizza. It's just a circle. And as we saw before, when we put our whole note into the measure, because it equals 4, remember our whole pizza and our whole note both equal 4, we put it in the measure by itself, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and that completes the measure. For our half pizza, we're also going to have a half note. The half note looks like the whole note with a line or a stem either going up or going down. It can go either way. But for your half note, you'll see a circle with a line. And notice that circle is not colored in. It's an open circle. So that's our half note. And just like our half pizza was 2 beats, our half note is 2 beats. And just like how we had 2 half pizzas in to complete our measure of 4, now we have 2 half notes to complete our measure of 4 beats. Since each one is equal to 2, the first half note gives us beats 1 and 2, and the second half note gives us beats 3 and 4, and once we get to 4 beats, our measure is complete. Next, we have our quarter note. Our quarter note, just like our quarter slice, is going to get 1 beat. And remember, we know that because it's kind of like how you put 4 quarters in a dollar. We're also going to have 4 quarters to fill our pizza. We have 1 quarter slice, 2 quarter slice, 3 quarter slice, 4 quarter slice. And if we're dividing into 4 equal parts, we have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 gets me to 4. And the same way with my quarter notes, I take 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, and that brings me to 4 beats. Next, we have our eighth note. Our eighth note's a little tricky. Now we're going to split it even more in half. So we have a half pizza, split in half gets us to quarter, and then split in half again gets us to an eighth of a pizza. Here you can see I have 1/8 in so far. So far we've been splitting the value in half each time. We started with a whole note, which equaled 4 beats. Split that in half, gets us to 2 beats. Split it in half again gets us to 1 beat, and that's our quarter note. So if I'm going to split my quarter note in half, I get to my eighth note, and our quarter note equals 1 beat, so when I split that in half, I get to 1/2. So an eighth note by itself equals half of a beat. But I can also put them together. So when I put one quarter note together with another quarter note, it looks like this. This is called a beamed eighth note. And if it's a half plus a half, it brings me to 1. So when I put them together, I have 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, and 4.5. And it doesn't bring me to 4.5 beats, it's just showing me that the halves add up. So I have 1 beat, 2 beat, 3 beats, and 4 beats. And when I count them, it'll go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it'll bring me back to beat 1 in the next measure. So to review, our whole note gets 4 beats and it fills the measure by itself. A quarter note gets 1 beat, and if I put 4 of them in, I get 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 brings me to 4 and completes the measure. My half note, each of them gets 2 beats, so I have 2 plus 2, which brings me to 4 and completes the measure. And then, if I were to mix them together, here I have 2 quarter notes and a half note. This brings me to 4 because I have 1 plus 1, which brings me to 2. And then my half note equals 2 beats, so I have beat 3 and 4 in this half note. That covers our basic notes. And remember, we also had 8 notes in the previous slide. You can go back to that if you want to review that. But these are the different notes you'll see in the worksheet that we'll be doing today. Today you'll see a worksheet that has notes mixed together, kind of like what we have here. And you have to tell me how many beats it equals. This time they will not all equal 4. It may be a half note plus 1 quarter note. If you had a half note plus 1 quarter note, you'd have 2 beats plus 1 beat, and 2 plus 1 gets you to 3 beats. So that's how you'll work on that worksheet. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email Mr. Van Dzura either through the music website or by emailing kvandzura, that's VANDZURA, at sfnh.org.